The boy who spoke to wolves. Every night when the sky turned soft and the stars blinked awake, Milo would sneak to the edge of the forest. He pulled his red scarf tight and listened. Sometimes the owls went hoot, and sometimes the tall pines sighed. But once, on a night full of silver light, Milo heard something else, a long, low, friendly voice, like wind in fur. The voice said very simply, "Hello." Milo whispered back, surprised that his voice could find the wolf words. The voice belonged to Silver Wolf, who stepped from between two birches, fur rhymed with starlight. He was not scary. He was like a tall, kind shadow with eyes full of moons. Milo remembered the stories people whispered by their hearth about wolves, but his heart felt only warm curiosity. "Can you speak wolf?" Silver Wolf asked. Milo giggled. "I can try," he said, and the forest listened as a small boy and a big wolf found one new, quiet language. They sat close together on a ring of soft moss. Milo learned how the wolves hummed with short breaths and how their tails made little drum beats on the ground. Silver Wolf taught him a gentle word for friend that sounded like a wind bell. Milo tried it until his tongue felt funny, and then they both laughed, wolf laughter and boy laughter slipping into the trees. Night seemed to hold its breath, listening to the two new friends share stories. Soon the pack came. Wolves of every quiet gray and silver padded out like a slow, soft wind. A little pup tumbled in last, ears too big and eyes like warm tea. He bumped into Milo's knee and braved a shy nudge. The pup's name was Pebble because he loved to bat tiny stones across the stream. But on this night, Pebble trembled. His paw was muddy, and he kept looking past the trees toward the dark hill where moonlight sat thin and worried. Silver Wolf lowered his head close to the boy. "Pebble misses his home den," he said in the hush of the trees. "And the moonstone is dim tonight. The night feels small without the stone's glow." Milo felt his heart push like a small bird. "I will help," he said. The wolves tilted their ears and the owls blinked as if to say, "Yes, please." So Milo put on his red scarf and followed the pack deeper where the path smelled of fern and stories. They walked through a corridor of trees that hummed with sleeping beetles and hidden crickets. Old Owl flew ahead and blinked his round golden eyes to guide them through safe branches. Milo's boots tapped soft moss, and the pack's paws made a gentle rhythm. Every so often, Silver Wolf would press his nose to the ground and point his ears to listen for Pebble's family. The forest seemed to lean close, curious about the small human who walked with wolves. At a clearing round as a bowl, the moonlight looked sleepy and thin. Pebble stopped and whimpered. Milo crouched down and rubbed behind Pebble's ears the way Silver Wolf had shown him. A soft hoot answered, an old voice from a hollow log. It was Pebble's grandmother, muttering wolf songs. "We have lost the moonstone," she said between hoots. "When the stone dimmed, our paths grew muddled. We need its silver best to hold the night together." Milo felt braver than he had thought possible. The moonstone, Milo learned, was a small glowing pebble that hung in a hollow tree long ago. It kept the dark soft and friendly so animals and people could dream without worry. But tonight it lay dull somewhere beyond the moss and the fern. "Will you help us find it?" Silver Wolf asked. Milo's hands tingled. He thought of his warm cottage and his mother's lullaby, and he nodded. "We will find it together," he promised, and the wolves echoed the promise like a ripple. They followed a path of faint footprints that shone a whisper in the damp ground, little paw prints, and a few human boot marks. Sometimes the trail led them to a brook that giggled over stones, sometimes to a patch of ferns that smelled like pepper and rain. Milo sang softly the lullaby his mother hummed to him, and the wolves learned the tune and hummed along. The music felt like a silver kite tugging them forward through shadow and root. At last, they reached a hill of black moss and old stones. The moonstone's faint breath seemed close, but between the pack and the hill a low, rustling sound lived, a fence of bramble guarded by a tangled thorn bush. In its center, a little gap had been chewed by something with clever teeth. Milo knelt and peered through. On the other side, the moonstone sat on a flat root, pale as milk and only whispering light. Milo held his breath. Some things look small until you see them glow. A rustle made Milo turn. Two bright eyes peeked from the bramble. It was a fox with a scalloped ear and a tail like a feather. The fox had found the moonstone first but could not carry it. "I wanted to keep it for myself," the fox whispered. Milo felt the old surprise that sometimes still lives in his chest. Then he remembered the wolf words for friend and said them softly. The fox blinked, and something small and shy melted in her gaze. Milo spoke again, slowly. He offered the fox a piece of his red scarf, just a ribbon to remember them by. The fox took it and tied it around her neck like a tiny flag. "We can share," Milo said. The wolves wagged their tails in agreement, and Pebble barked a bright little sound. The fox stepped out of the bramble, careful and proud, and together they lifted the moonstone onto a soft bed of leaves. It blinked awake, just a little, like a firefly rubbing its eyes. The moonstone's light spread, like butter on warm toast, until the forest breathed with silver. Moss turned to velvet, and shadows no longer looked sharp and hungry. The wolves howled a soft, round note that rolled up and into the sky. Milo cupped his hands and caught a little moonbeam. He thought of his mother singing and his cottage light. His heart felt full and wide as the world. Pebble snuggled into Milo's lap and fell fast asleep, dreaming of little stone games. They had one last task: return Pebble to his den across the brook and the hill. The wolves formed a slow ring, and Silver Wolf led with steady paw beats. Milo walked between two friendly noses and felt like he belonged to both the forest and the cottage at once. When they reached the den, Pebble's family rushed out with nuzzles and excited woofs. The den glowed with the moonstone's new light, and the whole pack circled like a warm blanket. Before Milo left, Silver Wolf bowed his head and pressed his warm nose to Milo's hands. "You have both forest and firelight in you," he said, in a language that felt like a promise. "Take care of them both." Milo hugged Pebble one last time, then hugged Silver Wolf. He walked back through the trees, following the glow that now soothed every shadow. The night felt larger and kinder than it had when he first stepped into the woods. When Milo came home, the cottage window was a gold square in the dark. His mother opened the door and wrapped him in a blanket like a storybook hug. Milo smelled of leaf and fox and rain, and he hummed the lullaby the wolves had learned. "Did you speak to wolves?" his mother asked with a smile that was both surprised and somehow expected. Milo nodded and told her the softest parts of the night while she made warm cocoa. That night, Milo tucked Pebble's ribbon, now a tiny, gentle knot on his windowsill where moonlight could touch it. He listened as the wolves' song floated like a far bell through the trees. His mother kissed his forehead and whispered, "Good dreams." Milo closed his eyes and dreamed of soft paws and silver stones. He dreamed of friends who were different and brave, and of how a small voice can make a great, gentle change in the dark. From then on, Milo visited the forest often. He would sit on the moss, speak wolf words, and sometimes teach children from the village how to listen with their hearts. The wolves showed the villagers where mushrooms grew and where the brook was safest to cross. People learned there was more to the forest than stories of fear. In the evenings, the wolves and the villagers would hum together under the moonstone's glow, a strange and beautiful choir of hoots, hums, and human lullabies. One bright morning, Milo found Pebble at the stream, chasing sunbeams and licking dew from a leaf. Pebble bounded over to Milo and dropped a small, smooth stone in the boy's hands. It was not the moonstone, but it glowed a little when Milo held it, like a secret remembered. Milo smiled and tucked it into his pocket. He had spoken to wolves and learned the world's quiet languages. He knew now that listening could make new friends and keep old lights shining. And sometimes, when the night drew a silver blanket over the world, Milo would sit with Silver Wolf and the pack under the bright, steady moonstone. They would share stories of tiny brave deeds and of how fear can turn to song when someone reaches out. Milo looked up at the sky and felt the smallness and the grandness at once. He put his hand on a warm wolf head and whispered in both languages, "Thank you." The wolves howled, a bright ribbon of sound that wrapped the whole forest in home.